Watch the world come alive in your living room. Defining moments. Momentous events. News Tonight, your window to the world. Every night at 9 p.m.
As we were talking in the room there, that it is just very encouraging to see that India is deeply committed to empowering, including people with disability. Strengthening by the IT skills of youth with disabilities is a critical requirement. So with that, the question is around, what are your thoughts about including accessibility features, the requirements around that in the IT procurement to make sure that that is front and center in any of the IT projects? So if you could comment on that, thank you.
First of all, I would like to give a brief introduction about the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act. We have, India had ratified the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act in 2007. And soon after, we had our act, which is the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act, which was published in 2016, where we need to empower the disabled persons. We need to preserve, promote, and protect their human rights. But when we look at the category of disabilities, we have 21 categories of disabilities. That would include people who have physical, visual impairment, hearing impairment, and locomotor disabilities. We also have people who have intellectual, developmental disabilities. That could mean anyone who has Down syndrome, autism, learning disabilities. We also have people who have chronic neurological disorders, dwarfism, and also the blood disorders like thalassemia, hemophilia, sickle cell. But when we do look at the ability of such persons to use a computer or to be digitally sort of empowered, I find that there's tremendous potential. Even a person who has, maybe paraplegic but lying on the bed could use the computer. But the challenge lies in how to make the technology accessible to such persons. And the challenge also lies in how to ensure that the skilling, the training, and the use of technology would actually enhance his family's income. It will bring him out of the poverty or the morass that he's been living in for so many years. As you would know that the initial disabilities, such as the locomotor disabilities, hearing and visual impairment, could be related to some health factors, genetic factors. But today when you see autism, it is widespread. Down syndrome, it is widespread. It cuts across caste, class, income, religion. But we do find that the highest percentage of disabilities, which are physical disabilities or hearing and visual impairment disabilities, are from the lower strata income. So their literacy levels would be low, and therefore to skill them in information technology would require a certain amount of confidence building and also their ability to use a phone. But I think today when we look at smartphones, even a child can use a smartphone. So my challenge was when I was looking at this skilling and training of the specially abled persons, I found that we were sort of following the traditional path of empowering them by giving them sort of training in trades like knitting and tailoring and some handicraft items and things which were more sort of acceptable to them. But soon I realized that even if I have to start an enterprise, if I have to start a floriculture business or a food business or maybe I have to start my own citizen sort of service center, I would first need to know what are the schemes in government, what are the kind of, scope and, the ecosystem, whether, like they said, that you could use artificial intelligence in agriculture. So he would need to be a little more sort of, alert about what are the ingredients of his success. In that, I found that whatever it may be that as it may, whether I teach him how to make biryani or teach him how to start a floriculture, he needs to have ICT as an essential component of skilling. So I rehashed the whole thing and I said, whatever may be his interest of learning, but ICT component should be there. And I also realized that if he has to join in a training for learning how to make designs and codes, he really doesn't need to be a literate person. He could just about sit next to a computer with a group of friends and he could still make so many graphics that, that can come in handy. And particularly people who are autistic moderately, who has the cognitive abilities, are very repetitive in nature. So I think they would do wonderfully well in areas of artificial intelligence and in areas of computing or in appraisal of software programs. So I realized that, but how do I get a critical mass of people from the specially able category to learn such things, and how do I get them through a catchment area? Because my disabled persons are spread all over the country. So I said, why don't I have my own national institutes to be the incubation centers where I could actually see that the initial lot of people who are interested in learning, who are sort of in the age group of, say, 12 to 35, could be brought in. And this is how I realized that ICT should be an important component of training, no matter what are the other trades that he wants to learn. I also realized that when we looked at an interactive model of training, when he wants to learn, say, about beekeeping or floriculture, I realized that if there is a person who's teaching him, like we're speaking English now, in the Anglo-Saxon mode, he will not be able to ask questions because he can't speak English.
That's right.
So why don't I make the interactive model of training, which is the theory part, the practical part could be in the labs, but the theory part could be made into different languages. We could sort of start with Hindi, we could start with Bengali, we could start with Gujarati, Marathi. And therefore, wherever he is, even if he doesn't come into the classroom, he could still access through his smartphone and learn how to get the theory component in and go on to the practical component. So we're looking at how to make language-specific, custom-specific, and see that whatever he wants to learn within the given area, because often people who are from the sort of poorer income sort of strata, they would look for jobs and migrate from one place to another. I thought that why don't we look at what are the trades that they could pick up and what kind of employment opportunities that we need to create within his given circumstances. So this is where we are looking at innovative ways of how to make training interesting and creating opportunities for them so that their livelihood issues are addressed and the skilling becomes, in real time, something where he can actually pick up a trade or a job or create a self-employment opportunity within the given specific circle.
Think blockchain. Think about, what would it take, what skills is necessary for your organizational success, and what concerns you may have related to obtaining that. Because I think for the crowd here and for myself, these are the future leaders, right? That will aspire to be providing that kind of capabilities to move digital India. So anyone could take this question. So what are the skills that you think are necessary for your organizational success? If we were to come back 5 years, and what would you say about that? So I'm going to open it up. I know we're 3 seconds out. Anyone?
Well, I think India as a whole would have to really look at empowering everyone with the ICT skills, because when we are moving towards a digitized world where we're looking at the GST platform, we're looking at, e-payments, we're looking at accessing information on the internet, looking at weather conditions, looking at cloud behavior, looking at, everything which is affecting our day-to-day life. I think ICT component is like the mantra. It has to be there. But the challenge is, how do we make technology and applications accessible to not only the urban India, but the entire rural India, one. Secondly is those places where connectivity could still be a challenge, and where, maybe the laying of optic fiber networks, the satellite communication needs to be enhanced, and where the potential is great, but the basics are still not there. So I think these are the challenges which we need to address very closely. And once we see that we reorient, the training towards, language-specific, region-specific, the potential and scope that are there, I think we are almost there.